On today's Locked On Texans podcast, Cody and I discuss Derek Stingley Jr. now out due to a hamstring injury and how can Houston move forward in his absence.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Texans fans across the world, to a Friday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And as you see it, your team every day. Shout out to our new subscribers, new viewers, new listeners for the first time. Make sure that you subscribe to the Locked On Texans podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And to our returning listeners and viewers and family, welcome back to another episode as we continue to talk Texans every day. I'm your Texans football analyst, John Sports Guy Hickman. Of course, joining me as always is Sports Illustrated's own Houston Texans credential media member, Cody Davis. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. A lot of y'all are looking for last minute Beyonce tickets. Download the Game Time app right now, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Ain't no last minute tickets for the Queen Bee. I tell you that for sure.
I think unless you feel like paying $3 bands for them, you might have to wait until they upload it on YouTube or something. Right after you watch the Locked On Texans podcast. We got to look into the YouTube comments today. We're going to end off today's show, but Derek Stingley, Cody, viewers, listeners, that is the news for the Houston Texans a couple of days after receiving word and finding out that Tavier Thomas will also be out for an extended period of time for the Houston Texans. We are expecting Grayling Arnold to play the nickel position. That's word from D'Amico Ryans and the defensive coaching staff. But Derek Stingley, who through the course of 2 weeks, I think only allowed up to 2 catches, maybe 3, only 20 yards. PFF would like to accredit him to that big play by the tight end. But I don't look at that after I go back and watch his tape. That wasn't on him. So through the course of the first 2 games, he only allowed 10 yards per game. That is a crushing blow for a cornerback, who has had injury history, who has been labeled injury prone, even with his talent that is obviously through the roof. When you look at a corner being able to take out your team's top receiver away from their game plan, losing Derek Stingley is going to be hard, Cody. But let's talk about that injury. How does this impact Houston now? And let's look into Derek Stingley.
Yeah, so let's just start by just looking into Derek Stingley Jr. And I was told on yesterday that this hamstring injury took place on the very last play of practice Wednesday morning. That is part of the reason why. Matter of fact, that is the reason why he did not pop up on the injury report Wednesday. So, of course, Aaron Wilson for KPRC, he was the very first one to report this news about Derek Stingley Jr. being out with a hamstring injury, and that came on Thursday morning. So everybody, including Aaron himself, because I talked to him, everybody was, of course, surprised by this news. And John, I really do hate this for Derek Stingley, because when we had an opportunity to talk to him during training camp, he just seemed like he was so energetic. I mean, John, you was there for a couple of days. You saw how healthy he looked. You saw how good he looked going up against Nico Collins and Robert Woods. And not only that, we saw it through the first 2 games of the season. According to Pro Football Focus, he has had a cover grade of 69.1. But a lot of people, just like you said, you don't want to credit him for that big play to the tight end. So there's a possibility where that cover grade could definitely be a lot higher. However, this is a cornerback who has only given up 3 catches on 7 targets, and he has only given up 37 yards while only giving up as well 8 yak yards. But John, Derek Stingley has started out this season really, really good, but unfortunately, injuries has been the story of Stingley ever since the LSU 2019 championship. As a matter of fact, if we could just go down his injury history since, in October and November of 2020, he had a high ankle sprain. August of 2021, of course, that's the Liz Frank injury. October of 2022, this injury took place, I believe it was either week 4 or week 5 in that game against the Los Angeles Chargers. He went down with that shoulder injury. However, he didn't miss time. However, he was limited throughout practice. And of course, everybody know he missed the final 5-6 games of his rookie season due to another hamstring injury. And I'm starting to wonder whether or not this is the same hamstring that he injured last year. And that's very important because I always go back to something that Lovie Smith said when we was asking about the potential return of Derek Stingley. He said, what you don't want to do is rush a hamstring injury because you never know when it's fully healed. Now, I understand between the last time we saw Stingley as a rookie all the way up until week 1 of the 2023 campaign, that's about a total of like 6 to 8 months. However, I just hope that this isn't the same hamstring injury, because if it is, as of right now, his timetable is somewhere in the ballpark of 4 to 6 weeks. However, it could possibly be even longer.
Yeah, and that would put Derek Stingley on course to return back to Houston at the earliest. And I think what Houston is going to do is be very cautious with him. You also got to look at D'Amico Ryans, who came from the San Francisco 49ers, and they had Jason Verrett, who, when healthy, I thought Verrett had an opportunity to be a top 3 premier corner in the NFL, but that was an issue. Super talented, uber talented, but the health was an issue. So I think they're going to take their time with him. Houston does have a bye week, the week of the October 22nd. Mm-hmm. And so that would put Derek Stingley at that point 5 weeks, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, New Orleans, and you look at the bye week. And that is, when you look at the schedule, Calvin Ridley, George Pickens. I'm not too worried about Atlanta at all offensively, but New Orleans, you look at Chris Olave, Michael Thomas. And so then that 5th week, week 7, would be the bye week. And that could put him on schedule to return, I think, at the safest and earliest against Carolina. But if Houston wants to continue to be very cautious with him, as they should, then I look at Tampa as the first game that he may return, maybe Cincinnati, and that'll put him out at least 8 weeks. 7 weeks actually, including the bye.
Bad. I don't want that to be his very first games.
But back to back, you look at Mike Evans right now, who's tearing it up, and then you look at, by that time, maybe Jamar Chase and those boys with Joe Burrow, they're on the same page. But again, Houston has to be cautious with him. Right now, year 2, he is not a guy that I think Houston would extend, nor should they extend, right? And I think that he's a guy that Houston is going to look at picking up his 5th-year option. Same thing Houston did with Titus Howard. But for Derek Stingley and this franchise, it's time, man. I would not rush him back. He definitely needs to play again this year. But whatever is going on internally with his body, these are the things that you cannot control. It is out of your control. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these, what was the rumor that Derek Stingley ran at 40? It would have been like a 4-3.
4-3, I think. A 4-3. I think it was 4-3.
These 4-3, 4-2 guys, man, uber talented, again, super fast. But those hamstring issues are there with those faster guys, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't have the numbers behind it, but you see a lot of those hamstrings. But the hamstring injury in itself, in general, that's an injury that you got to take your time with. And for Houston right now, we're going to talk about how can they move forward without Derek Stingley. It sucks because, and you look around the NFL, guys, now you may have Trayvon Diggs with a torn ACL. The injuries this season for the Houston Texans alone are at positions where it was top heavy because of that player. And right now, Houston does not okay, we can expect Steven Nelson to step up, no question. But now you're looking at a situation where if Grayling Arnold moved down to play nickel, you got Shaquille Griffin, who, by the way, hasn't been great with his time on the field. Who's going to be the next man up for Houston? I think Houston needs to look at – we'll talk about how Houston can move forward, but looking at Derek Stingley and his hamstring injury, it sucks because he came into camp leaner. He came into camp healthier, bigger. He came into camp twitchier. He came into camp looking like this was going to be his breakout year.
Confident, and again, excited.
All of that. And again, PFF would like to accredit him that pass from the tight end I think he slipped, and I want to say that may have been cover 2. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember, but I don't think so. And so through the course of the first 2 games, I think he only gave up 10 yards per game. That was a guy that my boy out in Atlanta, I forget the cornerback's name. He's not going to get a lot of hype, but he's doing his job and he's doing it well. I hate to see this injury, and I hope, like Tavierre Thomas, for Derek Stingley to have a speedy recovery. Buying tickets to your favorite event should not be stressful, guys. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, music, comedy, and theater near you. So listen, killer deals on last-minute tickets. The best price guaranteed. You don't got to stress over the tickets, and you can now start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. They got flash deals and last-minute tickets all the time. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Images of the seat view so you'll know exactly where you're sitting. Lowest price guaranteed, even cancellation protection, job loss protection, and much more. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you missing the serve for your pancakes, or you just ran out of your favorite coffee creamer? With DoorDash grocery delivery, you can now get what you want right when you need it. Love the convenience of getting what you want right to your door. With DoorDash grocery delivery, you can stock up for the week on last-minute orders and cravings conveniently. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery deliveries that will come right to your door. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood, like HEB, and boost your local economy with each and every order. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order, up to $20, a $20 value when you choose DoorDash and use code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. Limited time offer, terms and conditions apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL.
Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, one of the up-and-coming quarterbacks in the league. What are some of the intangibles that you see going into this matchup?
They're very dynamic offense, you know what I mean? They got a lot of weapons, got a good quarterback, you know what I mean? So we just got to make sure we build our stuff to do.
Yeah. How, you played against the Jags and Trevor Lawrence last season. How much do you think that dynamic is going to change with them adding Calvin Ridley to the team?
Yeah, he's a dynamic receiver, you know what I mean? It just gives them another weapon to use. So he's definitely somebody that's going to have to be accounted for.
Mm-hmm. Third game, but it seemed like you guys are going to have Jimmy Ward back, but unfortunately Jalen Petrie was still out. But what is it going to be like just to have Jimmy Ward and added into the lineup?
Jimmy's like a real vocal leader, you know what I mean? So that'll definitely help, especially on defense.
Yeah. Thank you, man. That's all I need. Appreciate you. Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday installment of Locked On Texans. That was just a quick one-on-one interview that I had an opportunity to do with MJ Stewart following yesterday's practice. And John, I really thought that this game was going to be one of the most competitive games for the Houston Texans. And, part of me really thought that maybe, just maybe, the Texans could win their first game of the 2023 campaign. Yes, I understand on the crossover show with our boy Wig, I did pick the Jacksonville Jaguars to win, but I believe I only had them winning by 3. However, with the news of Derek Stingley Jr., along with the news from early on in the week with Tavierre Thomas, and by the way, Jalen Petrie will not be playing in Sunday's game, I just believe that there are just too many of your top defensive backs that's going to be out, and you going up against Trevor Lawrence, one of the most up-and-coming quarterbacks in the league. And not only that, you take a look at their wide receiving core highlighted by Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk.
I'm looking at Houston, and I'm thinking to myself, get Cameron Dantzler on the phone. Right now, He just signed to the Saints practice squad a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Cameron Dantzler in the one preseason game, ironically against the New Orleans Saints to end it off, 2 catches allowed for 26 yards according to PFF. He did have an interception that game as well. 2 of the 4 targets. So, and I thought Cameron Dantzler was a guy that was going to make the team. They brought him in late, and I thought they obviously liked him.
Mm-hmm.
The skill set. We go back to his time in Minnesota. Every time I say Minnesota, I think about Joe Biden. But you go back to his time in Minnesota through the course of the first 3 years of his career. The last 2 only allowed 311 yards in 2021, 396 in 2022, playing over 500 snaps in both seasons. In 2021, he played in over 600 snaps, nearly 700. 2 touchdowns allowed. You look at 2022, 10.2 yards per catch. 21, 9.4 yards per catch. So he's a guy that I think would be serviceable for Houston, and I think there's an opportunity for him to be more than serviceable here in Houston. And I say bring him in ASAP because, number one, right now, we look at this depth chart. Okay, if there's no Derek Stingley, if there's no Tavierre Thomas, that leaves you right now with Grayling Arnold, who will be moving, it's originally a safety, moving to nickel, Steven Nelson, Shaquille Griffin, Kadar Holman. That's on the depth chart right now. Mm-hmm. And if I'm missing somebody, let me confirm before I move forward. On the defensive side of the ball, D'Angelo Ross for Houston and Alex Austin, Jacoby Francis. A very weak group, and that's not a shot at them. But if not for this immediate game, and I know it's difficult because you got to get prepared right now and bringing in somebody that even though was on your team during the preseason, not necessarily a part of your practice squad here in Houston, so maybe out of the loop. At some point between now and next week, Houston needs to sign a cornerback. And I'll tell you why this is important. There was an issue when I said I'm not necessarily trusting the linebacker group. If somebody gets hurt or somebody isn't performing, what's going to happen? Well, we're seeing that. Right? You're seeing Denzel Perriman didn't practice on Thursday, guys, and I don't think he's playing, Cody, Sunday.
No, if he don't show up to practice on Friday, then he's
not playing. And so now you're looking at a situation, wow, depth again is an issue. The injuries for Houston has been the storyline, but I think somewhere in their storyline, the big part of that plot is the depth has been, the next man up hasn't been addressed. So I'm looking at, for Houston, if you're going to go outside of your roster, of your franchise, of your building, which when we talked about Tavierre Thomas, that was a question mark for me. If you guys remember, I said, I don't think Houston's going to go outside. And at that point, maybe they didn't have to. But now with Derek Stingley, and you got how many games you're going to be missing with your top corner? If not Steven Nelson, 1A, 1B, you got to go bring a body in, somebody that can contribute. And again, Cameron Dantzler is a guy that D'Amico Ryans, Matt Burke in this defense had an opportunity to coach, seen him in live action versus the preseason game, versus the Saints in the preseason game, and he was able to contribute in that game as well. I thought he played well. If not, Cameron Dantzler, listen, Cody, you may remember this. Some of y'all may have forgotten.
Don't do it. I know where you're going.
Remember when I mentioned bringing home the hometown kid and William Jackson III? Y'all know that boy from the North Side? Right now, he is currently he had a visit with somebody this week. He is still currently a free agent. And I think it comes down to the numbers game, contractually, where can we put our money in the most, where we can maximize that potential without not maybe necessarily having to overspend, which while Nick Caserio is still general manager at some point throughout this season, we'll talk about that. But while he is still the general manager of this team, Cody, what was a highlight from Nick Caserio this offseason? You got to see how the money and how the potential of that player matches with what we're trying to do here in Houston. That was early in the offseason. I think that was like in January, February. So he's still running the show. And because of that, and because of his philosophy, you got to look at the money and see how it plays out. But I don't think Houston can move forward without bringing in an outside cornerback. And if you're going to compete, bring in the player with the most potential to maximize this defense and its potential.
I 100% agree, but John, here's the only issue with that. There's nobody that they're going to sign on the free agency market to help contain the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday. And I'm just looking at the two guys right now that's going to be the quote unquote next man up. Shaq Griffin, a guy who I was high on when the Texans brought him in as a free agent, but ever since OTAs, I have not seen the Shaq Griffin who was a Pro Bowler with the Seattle Seahawks a few years back. And not only that, this is somewhat of a revenge game for him because we was told that his time in Jacksonville did not end on good terms, and that's part of the reason why they released him. However, the next guy that I'm looking at, Graylin Arnold. Now, before moving on, I had an opportunity to ask Coach D'Amico Ryans, what has he seen out of Graylin Arnold throughout training camp and throughout these first couple of weeks of practice throughout the regular season that has given him the confidence that Graylin Arnold can step in and fill in this vacancy for Tavier?
Yeah, Graylin he's earned the right to get reps. Graylin has been with us from the start every day. Graylin is a hard worker. He's there. He's dialed in to what we're asking him to do. Graylin's still a good football player. He flies around, plays physical, so I know Graylin will do well with the role.
I've always been high on Graylin Arnold dating back to last season. However, John, there's two issues that I see with Graylin as of right now. First and foremost, John, really quick, what is his natural position?
Safety.
With
Safety.
that being,
and to go even further into that, since 2020, Graylin Arnold has only lined up as an outside cornerback 4 times.
And that's where I was going next. Not only is he going through a position change right now, but he's also he doesn't have the experience. And when you take a look at what the Jacksonville Jaguars like to do, I mean, if they put Christian Kirk in the slot, that is a guy that literally had like 110 yards, 111 yards during their week 1 victory. So experience is really going to hurt Graylin, which means the safety, the secondary position is going to take another decline. That isn't looking good at all.
So Christian Kirk, I know he had 110 versus the Chiefs this past Sunday, not the Colts, but he still put up 100. He plays in
cool.
He's in that slot position, but for Houston, you still got to look at, you're playing a golden boy, right? Trevor Lawrence, one of the golden boys, Sunshine, but Kirk, Ridley, I don't trust a linebacker to be able to stop Evan Ingram. They got to get bodies. They got to get bodies, man. And it's just at this point, the injuries, I think, have sucked the entire life out of the season to this point. Now, you're going to get a lot of these guys back, and that's great. But across the board, moving forward without Derek Stingley, you're not even top heavy anymore. You have one guy out there that you can trust. And this is an opportunity for Nick Caserio to go out there and make a move that makes sense, that's financially smart, but to still put your team in a position to where they can compete. And if another body goes down, you still have somebody that you can trust to step up. Right now, who on this team can you trust to step up? Not named Steven Nelson at that position. Prize picks. Won't you make you some money when you place an entry with Prize Picks? The most fun I've had, winning 25 times my money this football season. Y'all know I got a baby on the way, and you know what? I need a little extra dough, got a baby shop, got things I got to plan for. So I'm trying to take $10 and flip it into $250 with just a few taps. You pick the over-under. You're not betting against other people. You're betting against the projections available. Point. I have picked Nico Collins to go over a certain amount of reception yards the past 2 weeks. Shout out to Nico Collins because of that, I got some extra dough in my pocket. So listen, with Prize Picks, it's easier now. They got offers weekly on different promotions like Taco Tuesday. You can now use Apple Pay for a quick and easy deposit into your account this football season. Just go to prizepicks.com. It's not hard. You sit on the couch anyhow. Just go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code. Listen, you hear it. First time here. Use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first-time deposit match up to $100. You don't want to miss out on this. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers, to this Friday episode. Before we close out today's show, a couple of days ago, we had a podcast entitled "How Houston Texans Dameon Pierce been the most disappointing player 2 weeks into the season?" And
don't run from the smoke.
I'm not going to run from
10 toes down.
I'm not going to run from it. So a couple of comments were made from that show, and I think one of them that I would like to talk about is my boy X Davis 2759, one of since day one. So shout out to X, my man, one of my favorite listeners and viewers. This is what he said: common sense is just not common anymore. Where is Data at the left guard? Why is Josh Jones playing left guard? That last game Josh Jones played left tackle. When stuff makes all the sense and nothing is being done, you have to blame the coach. The offensive line is horrible, not playing the players to their strengths. Dameon Pierce is him, bro. Stop it, Mr. Hickman. I say about 80% of the time, every time he gets the ball, he is met by a defender in the backfield. Barry Sanders would have a hard time running behind this line. They have to find an offensive line coach. Also, Sheena Herrera 747. I'm really starting not to like y'all's show. We all know what's going on with the O-line. So how do y'all want him to run when he don't have the people for him to run? Another one.
Another one? Oh,
Got another one. No, I got killed. Oh, my man, Peter Grinello 8479. Maybe Dameon thinks y'all have been the most disappointing sports media personnel in Houston. How about that?
Well, I could definitely tell you that's not true. That last one is definitely not true.
I don't know, man.
Trust me on that one.
Cody, before I take it, you got anything you want to say?
No, because first and foremost, go back every single time y'all put y'all and put John. Yeah, or Mr. Hickman, because
I'll take it.
I thought for sure I said everything that they said, especially with the offensive line. Like, how do you run behind it? I believe the best example I used was the greatest running back in franchise history. Arian Foster couldn't even run behind this offensive line. So make sure y'all take the y'all and address it to John.
Yeah, I'll take it. I will take it. One comment I did like, but also didn't like, man, Mike Wallace 92. I mean, Pierce is still a fourth-round pick, so we shouldn't hold him to a higher standard than being a fourth-round pick. I don't think that's fair. I think Dameon Pierce is a good player. I think a lot of people got missed what I was saying in that episode, and that's okay, because if you go back, I did say that you got to put majority of the blame on the offensive line and put some blame on Bobby Sloyd. But what I'm getting at is, if you go and watch the games, if Dameon Pierce is not able to run north and south, in what other areas has he been able to this point, impact the offense? I'm not taking a shot at his ability to run the ball. I'm not saying the offensive line is perfect. Again, it's not a part of his game. If it's not a part of his game, then, why not, or whatever the case is. But he doesn't impact the offense if he's not doing the one thing that he's good at. And for me in 2023, unless your general manager and his coaching staff can put a running back room together to collectively be able to do that, then that's an issue. And I'm okay with standing by that.
So you standing 10 toes down.
And again, I love Dameon Pierce more so as a person than a player. But there is some, inconsistencies there. But not only with Dameon Pierce, guys, with with the Texans offense as a whole. So, listen, got two more comments. This was on the episode where another blow to the Houston Texans defense. We talked about Javier Thomas. Let's see. The one that I like is how many NFL games have y'all coached? And then it's another one by Frank Johnson, 2493. It's amazing how you talking heads think you know better than D'Amico Ryans, Nick Caserio, the Texans secondary coaches when it comes to Desmond King. They thought he should be cut. You think it was a mistake, but you're not in the meeting if you're not at every practice. You don't see the film that they do, but you think you know better. Amazing duration porn. Well,
let me take this one first and foremost.
Please, because
Desmond King wasn't cut due to his talent. He was cut, and this is literally what we have been told. He was cut due to stuff going on behind the scenes that I'm not about to get into right now. It had nothing to do with his talent. All I was saying in that show was Desmond King is just the latest of all of us hearing they didn't get along with this person in the franchise. They didn't get along with this person on the staff. They didn't get along with this important person, so they cut him. And it has happened on multiple occasions under the Nick Caserio tenure. That's it. And that's why I said if you go back and you take a look at Desmond King and Javier Thomas, I think we can all agree that both of those guys since 2021, they have been fairly good. But Desmond King has been the better talent out of those two. That's why when if you go and take a poll, who was the most shocking person to not make the Texans 53-man roster? It was Desmond King.
Yeah. But we're just talking heads, Cody. You're not there every day.
Yeah, I'm not there every day. I'm not there in the day every day.
And then to right. Peter Granello, 8479, who also said he's starting not to like the show. Well, how many NFL games have y'all coached? 0. How many games have you coached? How many? I think what Cody and I do, especially what I do, I go back and I watch the tape in the film, right? I don't go off a lot of the numbers. A lot of times the numbers are important, some of the advanced stats, but we give our opinion. And I think that at the very least here, it's fair and it's truthful. But we'll see, man. We love you guys. We do. And thank you for watching yet another episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Check me out this Sunday for a post-game reaction on Bleacher Report as I break down how I felt about the game, and we'll see. I still want Houston to pull this game off. I don't want to see Houston go down 0-3. Mm-hmm. Not with all the hype, not with all the excitement, not with all the positive changes that were made this offseason. So I want to see them go and fight and get a dub on Sunday. And I want to see Bobby Slowick use the pass to open up the run, right? Do not force the run. Don't force it. Let CJ, who has been your top 3 player, let him go out there and let the offense run through him. You got Larry Tunsil to be back on Sunday as well. So that's good news.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.